and in particular about one of the most fascinating stories of the English football season. It's the spectacular revival of Manchester United since they sacked Jose Mourinho a couple of months ago. Ole Gunnar Solskjær, an old Manchester United legend, really, a young man, but he's taken over as a temporary manager until the end of the season, and he has won 8 straight games playing an exciting brand of football, and generally people are beginning to wonder if he shouldn't be given the job on a permanent basis. My guest today played for Manchester United. He was there for 7 years. He won a FA Cup winners' medal with Manchester United in 1963. Sir Matt Busby, later in his career, said that the biggest mistake he ever made was letting John Giles leave Manchester United. John, you were at the club for 7 years, including in 1958, the time of the Munich air crash. In fact, you were in the ground that day. You were a member of the ground staff. It was a terrible shock. Can you just try to remind us, John, what that moment felt like, not just for you, but for the people of Manchester, and indeed for people all around the world? Because 8 of the team died, and they were a wonderful team, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Well, they were the Busby Babes, Eamon. Matt Busby had done a great job getting these young players into the club and had the courage to put them in, which hadn't been done before ever, I don't think. And in the Munich air disaster, the average age of the team was 22, so they looked like they were going to dominate certainly for the foreseeable future. And that was built over a fair period of time. I was only a young fella, and as you know, I was actually, we were back training in the ground for the youth team matches, which were big matches in those days. And old Bill Inglis, after we finished training, came in and said, "There's been a crash." But the way he said it, it looked like it wasn't a bad crash. I mean, it's only when I go back to the digs where the landlady said there's been a certain amount of people killed in the disaster, where it hit home to me. But as you say, I mean, the whole of Manchester, well, the whole of the world really.
Yes.
But Manchester in particular was a very, very sad place at that time.
Yeah.
Terrible tragedy, yeah.
It had a resonance all around the world, and perhaps that was the moment when the Manchester United legend grew way beyond football. I think a couple of things come into the equation, John. The youth of the players, as you say, back in those days, it was very rare for a young player to get a chance in the first team. Duncan Edwards had been in Manchester United's first team, I think, when he was 16, average age 22, but also they played a very daring, attacking style of football that was, again, it was very taking. People loved it. It was exciting and brave.
Oh, yeah. Well, but that had started, Eamon. Obviously, it had started earlier than that, because Matt Busby took over immediately after the war. Yeah. And they won the Cup in 1948 with a team that at that time was regarded as a very attractive, attacking team.
Yes.
Before he built the Busby Babes, because the Busby Babes obviously followed from the team in 1940 with Jackie Cardy and Jack Rowley and Charlie Mitten. All these guys, these were very, very well established players, and were I think admired by the away supporters even in those days. So yes. When that team got older, then the Busby Babes came into it as well. But there had been an established performance from the Manchester United team before the Busby Babes. So they took over from there, and obviously were better than that, Eamon, because the young players came in a way that had never been done before, which was brave and exciting. Yeah,
and one of the little clues to perhaps Busby's thinking about the game, Jackie Carey, a Dubliner, he made him his captain. Carey had been a midfield player. He moved him back to right back. Roger Byrne, who died in the Munich air crash, subsequently became captain. He'd been a left winger, and he moved him to left back. So I suppose the point I'm trying to establish is that attacking football was really associated with Manchester United, and Busby, the way he tried to convert players like Carey, that would underline the fact he wanted attack. He didn't want fullbacks who were statues.
Oh no! They were terrific players. I mean, but I think the main thing is, I mean, everybody wants attacking football, but you have to have the players to do it. And he got those players. But he certainly encouraged it, I mean.
Yeah.
He certainly encouraged, I mean, in my time with him, now, if you were winning, say, 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, and you went for the second goal, and you lost the goal, I mean, most managers, in my experience, would go mad if you did that.
Yeah.
But he'd say, no, that was the right thing to do. Don't worry about it. So it freed the players to go at any particular time, whether they were winning 1-0 or 2-0 or 3-0, to go for another goal. And he had the courage to do that. And he had a great attitude towards players in that respect. I don't ever remember him losing his head.
No, it's very interesting that you should say that, because one of the facts that emerged over the weekend, and I'm very grateful to a journalist in the Sunday Times, Jonathan Northcroft, when Mourinho took his United team to Chelsea earlier in the season, they were 2-1 up, and he made a substitution, and the substitution involved taking off Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial and putting on two defensively minded players. On Friday night, when Manchester United were 2-1 up at Arsenal, Ole Gunnar Solskjær also made a substitution. He put on Rashford and Martial to go and get the third goal and win the game, which is precisely what they did. That is a very interesting fact.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mourinho is known as a defensive manager. Now, I must say...
Chelsea came back, by the way, and got a 2-2 draw, despite his defensive-mindedness.
Where that's
when he made that defensive substitution.
Oh, right.
So it didn't pay off anyway, but the point is, Solskjaer...
That's what he tried to do, yeah.
Solskjaer, from the time he came in, he really... we were kind of laughing at him when he said, I want us to play football with a smile on our face, on the players' faces and all. I put my arm around the shoulders and not be like Mourinho. And we were kind of laughing cynically about that. But after sort of 8 games now, and some of them were soft, the early games, teams they should have beaten, even Mourinho probably would have beaten them, but they went to Wembley and beat Spurs, they went to Arsenal on Friday night and beat Arsenal very convincingly. He has made a difference, John.
Oh, definitely. I mean, sure, the results show that. I mean, I wasn't in favour of him coming in. I thought he was... I don't know him. We don't know him. I thought he was a young boy coming in to do the job, and he's done it extremely well. I think that Ferguson has been an influence there.
Yes.
I think there's definitely an influence of Ferguson in that, because he played with him, he's been at meetings, he's been in the dressing room after match. I think there's been an influence, and a positive influence, I must say.
Yes.
If you got Ferguson to come in to help him, good luck to him. He's shown that he's a bright spark to do it. I think the fixtures definitely were a help in getting them when they did. I think Manchester United were clever, the higher boys there, to get rid of Mourinho at that particular time,
yes,
because Mourinho might have won quite a few of those matches, Eamon, and it would have been difficult to sack him.
Yep.
I think they did that at the right time. The timing was right. And Solskjaer has definitely taken full advantage of it. Now, whether he gets the job at the end of the season remains to be seen. But certainly coming in and doing what he's doing, you couldn't ask any more of him.
No.
But, you know, you talk about the smile. I'm still cynical about the smile on your face.
Ah, yeah, well,
I know it's an expression.
Yeah.
I know it's an expression. That's what they want to do. They want to go out and enjoy themselves. He has done that, and he has released them. And you find in football clubs, I mean, when a new manager comes in, particularly after Mourinho, where the atmosphere there was very, very bad, then players are going to get together, and what they want to do is show people it was the manager's fault.
Yeah.
Which I think the most of it was anyway. So that's been a big help to him in that way. The second big help is getting a position for Pogba to be actually able to play and use whatever skills he has.
Yes.
Now, whether Ferguson was responsible for that or might have influenced him, that I don't know. Now, whether it was clever or whether it was by accident, I don't know. But it's certainly been the right move, and it's been a big, big help to them.
Yes, and we should mention Mike Phelan, who's sitting there on the touchline with Solskjaer, and indeed Michael Carrick. Mike Phelan was helped Alex Ferguson. He was coached there while Ferguson was there, and he is one of the other things that Solskjaer has done is to play Marcus Rashford in his right position, a position I think I felt for a long time I knew it was his right position. I think you did as well. He is a centre forward, and a potentially top player. And Mourinho refused to play him in his right position because he had to make a space for Lukaku. But
I think Mourinho mishandled him. I mean, the young fella seems to be a sensitive young fella. He's a good kid. And, like many of the players there, he humiliated them.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can't do that with players, and particularly lads like Rashford. And indeed, any player, in my opinion. And, if you want to get the best out of players, I mean, he fell out with about 10 players, Mourinho. Yeah. So with Solskjaer's coming in, I mean, he hasn't done that. And he said to Rashford, you're a good player, get in the right position. And, I mean, the first thing in management is getting players playing in the right position. But we saw with Rashford, when he went away with England, he was a different player.
Yes.
Like, he was a bag of nerves when he came back with Manchester United because he was dominated and dominated in a bad way by the manager. And you can't afford to do that. And I think that's what Solskjaer has done since he's come in. Yeah. I mean, I know it's the same as putting your arm around them, but certainly, treating them in the right way. And look at Luke Shaw, Smalling, all these players that Mourinho humiliated, and Rashford among them, because Rashford is probably the youngest of them.
Yes.
And looks like a sensitive young fella to me that needs the old arm around his shoulder rather than taking abuse, being abused.
Now, the thing about Manchester United that's makes them so loved, attractive to people all around the world. They are, in commercial terms, the biggest club in the world. They surpassed Real Madrid not so long ago in terms of their reach and the amount of memorabilia they sell and all of that stuff, which football people think isn't important, but is a measure of the affection that people hold Manchester United in. A lot of it, most of it, is to do with the way they play the game. The flair that Busby insisted on and encouraged, and later Ferguson insisted on and encouraged. When you think of the great team that he had with Scholes, Giggs, and Gary Neville, Roy Keane, of course, Van Nistelrooy, all these great players. But to go back to the problem that Manchester United faced, and to some extent are still facing. When Busby retired, they tried a number of people to replace him. The first was Wilf McGuinness, who was a former player. When Alex Ferguson retired, he was allowed to make a pick, and he picked David Moyes. The Wilf McGuinness thing was a disaster. And for David Moyes in particular, John, who I thought was a very good coach, a good reputation in the game, had done a really good job at Everton over many years, it really destroyed him.
Yeah, well, it's very, 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 very difficult to take over from these managers. I mean, there's very few clubs in the history of the game that, a manager like Alex Ferguson or Matt Busby retired and somebody can fill the boots. These guys only come along once in a blue moon, as they say. And I think in Moyes' case, I think, it was probably too big for him. In terms of, I remember Van Nistelrooy publicly criticising Moyes. I remember Rio Ferdinand publicly criticising Rio. And I think he felt, I don't know David Moyes felt, I think David Moyes felt that he had to be true to the guys that had done it for Alex Ferguson.
Yes.
I think what he should have done, looking back on it now, is to get rid of all those guys.
Right.
That sounds very, very harsh. But like once you come in, you come in. I think he wanted to ease his way in, and by the time he was easing his way in, he was gone.
Yeah.
So I think that the players who were there, who've been there for a long time and who've been great players for Alex Ferguson, felt that they had license to say things and do things because it was different. It's bound to be different. But I think in a very harsh way, because I think he tried to appease the lads who were there, who had been great players for the club.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out for him. But it's very, very difficult to take over from a legend like that. I mean, Alex Ferguson was the same. Matt Busby was the same. When these managers don't come along every day.
No.
They're very, very difficult to get.
And, of course, Liverpool had it mastered.
Sorry, Eamon, just to interrupt you there. Manchester United not loved everywhere.
No, I know. But we'll get back to...
I'd say if there's Liverpool supporters and Manchester City supporters listening to you now, they say, we don't love them. I know, I'm only kidding you. I know what you're saying.
The thing about... Well, I'd go back to the point I really wanted to put to you, because you played in a team with wonderful players like Dennis Law, Bobby Charlton, who are legends and rightly so, as you are yourself. Can you, and this is a key question that faces United now, must you, if you're manager of Manchester United, play the game in a certain way? And by that, I mean with flair, attacking, the kind of football that we think of, we associate with Manchester United. I mean, Liam and I think you felt that Mourinho was a bad fit. Because even if...
No, I didn't, Damon.
You didn't. No, Liam and I did, because we thought if even if he sets up a team like the other teams he was successful with, it still won't be in harmony with the Manchester United way of playing. Now, do you believe that it's important for anyone going into that job to say, this club has a tradition, they have a way of playing, I've got to bear that in mind? Because it appears to me that Solskjaer's success in the 8 games so far has him saying, we are, and he said it on Friday night after the game, we are Manchester United. This is how we play. I wonder what you think of that as a way of going about that job.
Well, I think it's exaggerated, Eamon. I think there is a reason for it, and I agree. It's not a question. It's a question of Manchester United playing the game in a way that they've been associated with over the years, because the managers believed in what they were doing and got brilliant players in. Eamon.
Yeah.
You know, they got great players in. If you look at Frank, you can't do it without the players.
No.
It's very easy to say to players, I want you to go out today and I want you to attack and attack and attack. When you have the opposition. So Manchester United at their best days with Ferguson, and that's the most recent times of their great days, they gave very few goals away, Eamon.
Yes.
You know, they defended well as well. Look at the defenders they had over the years.
Yep.
You know, Dennis Irwin and Rio Ferdinand and all these great defenders.
Vidic.
You know, brilliant. They gave very little away, Eamon.
Yeah. And Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister.
Yeah, all of them. You know, the Neville brothers, Dennis Irwin. They had terrific goalkeepers. Look at the goalkeepers they had over the years.
Yeah, Schmeichel
and the other lad they got from Fulham. Do you remember the Dutch lad?
Yeah.
Well,
Van der Sar.
So Van der Sar. Yeah. You know, they have a great goalkeeper, but they have to concentrate on it. So it's an all-round thing. You know, like in Matt Busby's day, he plays these terrific defenders as well. So you have to defend, but there is definitely an approach that when we have an opportunity to attack,
yes,
we've got to attack, and we've got to attack with everything we've got. You know, there's no doubt about that. And that does come from the Busby time, because Busby, in my time with him, didn't put the emphasis on defending. He definitely put the emphasis on attacking and doing the right thing and going for the goal. If you're 2 up, you go for 3. All of that thing, that's bravery in many ways of managers. And you mentioned with managers today, I think it was Mourinho, putting on defensive midfield players, Eamon. Busby wouldn't have done that in a million years.
Exactly. And
his best way to defend is we get another goal. And if we don't get another goal and we lose a goal, don't worry about it. That was the right thing to do. So he emphasised that all the time. So that began with Manchester United. But he always had an emphasis. You always have to defend, like no matter who you are. But I know what you're saying, that is the Manchester United way. But it's not quite as simple as it sounds.
Oh no, I know.
We're going to attack.
Well,
I'm not saying from you. I'm not saying you're saying that, but that's the general sort of feeling. We've got to attack. Well, you can only attack when you get the ball and you have good players to keep it, which they have. And that's. I mean, what's happening now with Solskjaer actually he is showing now that Mourinho did have better players than he thought he had, or assumed that he had. And was looking at the defensive side of it all the time, whereas actually the attacking side was there. If he had managed them in the right way and treated them in the right way, as Solskjaer is doing, that's what Solskjaer's brought into the club. I mean, now whether he can maintain that remains to be seen.
Yeah, well, we'll come back.
Certainly has. Sorry, go on.
We'll come back to that because I think the question at the end of this is, can he, if he gets Champions League football next season, which is a top 4 position, can he get the job on a full-time basis? But before we go there, I want to go back to after Matt Busby retired. They tried with McGuinness, and then they went for an Irishman, Frank O'Farrell. And Frank had managed Leicester and a couple of other clubs in the lower leagues. He was a very, very good football man. I went to see Frank in Torquay. He's a marvellous man, very, very principled, a devout Catholic, a good football man with a good knowledge of the game. His time at Manchester United left him very, very bitter. He just couldn't get on top of the job, John.
No.
But the club had disintegrated a bit at that stage with George going, AWOL. Post-Busby, the club had disintegrated.
Yeah, I think, I've read something about, I'll tell you a little funny story about Frank. He went to Preston Eamon.
Yeah.
And I played against him in the reserves. And somebody gave a bad ball and I was effing him blinded.
Yeah.
And he came over to me and he said, "There's no need for that, son."
Yeah.
And he'd been a hero of mine playing in the I said, "I'm very sorry, Mr. O'Farrell."
Yeah. He was part of a great generation of Irish players like Peter Farrell, Tommy Eglinton, and he was a good player and a very good and successful manager before he went to Manchester United. But it ended in tears. And then they tried Dave.
No, before you go any further there,
yes.
He wasn't happy with Matt Busby.
Oh, I know that. I think
when Matt Busby took over, he didn't relinquish the position.
No.
Wilf McGuinness had a very bad time with Matt Busby. Finished up having a nervous breakdown, actually.
Yes.
So I don't think Matt's influence, or he didn't step back.
No, he didn't. And
I think that made it very difficult, particularly difficult for Wilf McGuinness, and very difficult for Frank O'Farrell.
Yeah, Frank O'Farrell told me that Busby liked to play golf with the first team players on a Monday at Davy Golf Club. So if they were unhappy with Frank for dropping them, they had a word with Busby, and it was a very unsatisfactory situation, and it soured Frank, I think, from the game. A wonderful man.
It wasn't fair on him, Eamon.
Oh, no, of course it wasn't.
Yeah.
Now, the next man up after Frank was Dave Sexton. And Dave Sexton came with a very, very high reputation. He'd managed Chelsea, was a favoured to get to be the next England manager. He was a new thing. He was a coach and a very articulate and intelligent man, but he didn't do either.
No, he was. I don't know Dave Sexton. I think he was a very, very solid man, Eamon, who could do a certain type of job, and I think he was regarded himself more as a coach than a manager.
Yes.
Now, I'm only talking from the outside. Mm-hmm. So, again, I think it was difficult for him in terms of, getting the players in he wanted and that. I'm not sure, but that's the sort of rumours I heard at that particular time, because he was supposed to be a very, very decent type of individual.
He was, yeah. And they then had Tommy Docherty, who was a character, certainly, I knew Tommy. I interviewed him for my Busby book. I liked him, but he got them relegated, and of course he had the George problem as well, in a big way, and he didn't do. And then someone we both know.
No, he didn't. Let's go back and Tommy Doherty. No, he got the promotion straight away.
Oh, he did. I know that. Yeah.
Got the cup. So Doherty actually had the Manchester United way.
Yes.
In a similar way. You know, he was a go man. He had the two wingers. Actually, the crowd were very, very pleased with Tommy Doherty.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an off the field incident.
It was.
Did Tommy? You know, it wasn't a footballing thing, as we know.
It was, unfortunately, and I can say it now because I've written about it. He had a love affair with the physiotherapist's wife, and they are still married and still together. It was portrayed at the time as a kind of something, you know, that was just about sex, but it wasn't. In fact, they fell in love, and they're still together. And the doc is still around.
Got the sack, Eamon.
I know he got the sack because of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is he was doing okay with the fans.
He was.
You know, he was he had the two wingers. They played really. They did play him what we regard as the Manchester United way.
Yes,
he was popular with the fans. So it was just that off the field situation that got him from there.
Yeah. Now, Big Ron Atkinson went, and Big Ron was certainly talked the talk, and he had some success for a while.
Well, he won the cup. I think he won 2 cups, Eamon.
Yeah.
With them, I think Ron would have been. Let's go. Like he was asked one time, what are we going to do? We're going to attack.
Yeah.
I think Big Ron was very good with the press, and he had some very, very good players as well, Eamon.
Yes.
They didn't have the consistency. I think they had the flair at times, but they didn't have the consistency to be real contenders for the what was then the first division.
Yeah.
But it was, they won a couple of cups that kept them going.
Right.
But Ron eventually got the sack from Manchester United.
Yeah, I know he did. And of course, he succeeded you at West Brom, which is an unenviable task. But anyway, now the point I'm really trying to make, I suppose, or get to, is the difficulty that we've both talked about of replacing these giants. Bill Shankly.
Yes.
Another good example, Bill Nicholson at Spurs, a job that he wanted you to, in fact, be given, but they didn't listen to him. Now, to come back to Solskjaer, John, if he gets them in the top 4, he will, I think, be entitled to serious consideration for the job of managing Manchester United. And I'll tell you why I say that. He's been successful with the club he went to in Norway. Mold is the club. They'd never won anything. He won 2 league titles when he went there. He won a cup. Then he went to Cardiff in 2014, 4 or 5 years ago, and he only lasted 6 months and they were relegated. But I think that it isn't just the attitude he's changed over the last couple of months. I think tactically they've been good. I mean, for example, they beat Spurs 1-0 at Wembley, and Rashford got the goal in the first half. In the second half, Spurs tore them to shreds. And how they didn't score well, thanks to David De Gea, who made the famous 11 saves. They didn't get a result. But they have tightened up at the back. And I noticed when they were playing Arsenal the other night, they were better. They got people behind the ball. There's more discipline about the way they defend. And it was a very convincing win. Nothing fluky about it. What's your thoughts on that, all of that?
Well, there's no doubt he's done a very, very good job, Eamon. There's no doubt about that. If I was to put money on it now, would he be good enough for Manchester United? I'd have to say I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
I think the signs have been good, but the signs coming into a new job in the situation that he has come into is ideal, I think, for what I see from him from the outside.
Yeah.
He seems a good lad. I think he does put his arm around them, and I think they needed that.
Yes.
Now, is he going to be capable of, when that situation is over, coming towards the end of the season, Eamon, to really manage that? Now, and I don't mean to be unkind to him.
Yeah.
I think somebody coming in the situation he's come in with his temperament and that is actually made for the situation we're in.
Yeah.
Can he carry it on when you really have to manage? When you fall out with a couple of players, you leave a player out and he doesn't like it, and all the various things that you really have to do when the situation changes in the summer. Is he going to be allowed to buy new players? Are they going to get a director of football?
Yes.
All these particular
They
things.
are getting a director of football. I can tell you they are. He's coming from Atletico Madrid, where he was the sport where he is at the moment, the sporting director. His name is Andrea Berta, and he's supposed to be coming to Manchester United as director of football. Now, that raises its own questions, and the first question, I suppose, will he be deciding who's come in along with Ed Woodward, the chief executive, and where does Solskjaer fit into that triangle?
Well, he might fit in. Usually the director of football wants somebody to be a coach. Now, he might say, yeah, he's done a very good job. He's the coach, but I'm the man to bring in the players and get rid of the players.
Yes.
And he'll do what I want him to do, which is, there's the players, you coach them.
That's the way it works all over Europe, and mostly in England now. I mean, that's where Wenger was at the end.
It doesn't work everywhere. I mean, well, it does. If everybody's doing it, Eamon, somebody has to be a winner. That's how it works.
Right.
Now, again, I'll only go back to my feeling on it as a manager. And I felt in management and feel generally, 90% of management is getting the right players into the club and getting rid of the players that you don't want.
Yeah.
That's 90% of the job, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you take that away from a manager and give it to the director of football, which you do, that's 90% of the job done. And I know everybody says it's done on the continent. Of course it does. And it goes back to, and that's another discussion altogether. Directors love a director of football, Eamon.
Yes.
Because he's director of football.
Yes.
Right? Now, if it happens all over Spain, which I agree it does.
It happens at Spurs and Arsenal. It happens everywhere.
Well, it didn't happen at Arsenal with Wenger. It's happening now.
It did happen with Wenger.
No, Wenger has control of the players coming in, especially up to maybe in the last couple of months.
Okay.
Right, but he did have it, and it's no coincidence. Ferguson had total control of the time that he was at Manchester United. There's no doubt about it. In fact, his brother was his chief scout, which was his director of football, so you could trust him. A director of football is good, Eamon, if it's the manager's director of football. If it's the director's manager of football, it's no good.
Yeah.
But to get back to Spain and Italy and those places, if all the teams are doing it, which I agree they all doing it, one of them has to win, Eamon.
Yeah. But some great sides, and this is a point, some great sides have emerged where, and I'm thinking AC Milan, I'm thinking Barcelona, I'm thinking Real Madrid, where I don't think any coach has ever had, even Zidane.
Can I just interrupt you there as well?
Yeah.
Real Madrid are buying the best players in the world.
They're not now. And just let me
No, because that's what they are. That's where they are. But for over the great years, they've been. Barcelona had a spell where they had Messi and Xavi, where they were homegrown. Homegrown lads, which was a different thing altogether. I mean, that wasn't bringing. If you look at Barcelona, that wasn't from bringing in great players.
No, they were there.
Football. They bred them.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
like I'm only going back to the principle. Of course, there have been great teams. I'm only going back to the principle, though. See, this is my take on it. When I was in management, Damon, and over the years, directors never want to give, or ever will want to give the power to managers that I think the managers want.
That's over.
They don't like it. They don't like it, Damon.
I know, but it's over. What you believe in is over. Look at Spurs.
That doesn't make it right.
No, I'm not saying...
Look at Spurs. If you look at Pochettino over the last 2 or 3 years, there was a change in Levy's approach the management, because he was making a mess of it. When he had managers in that he brought in, none of them that did well. They brought Pochettino in, and I think he believed in this fella. And I remember reading in the paper time they did have a meeting where he was given more power to Pochettino than he had given to any of the others.
Right.
And I think that's the reason for the success of the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay, now.
Anyway, that's a different discussion altogether.
Well, but here's the question.
We'll do that another time.
Here's the question I want to ask you. Does it matter that the great Manchester United culture of way of playing survives and flourishes? It matters, I believe, to the English game and indeed to the European game. It's important. What happens at Manchester United is important.
Well, it's certainly important to Manchester United. That's their priority, and if it affects the rest of the conditions around Europe, that's great. I mean, we all want to see football played in an attractive way. And of course, Manchester United have to be up there with the big guns of football. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Manchester United are legendary in the history of the game and the way they have played it over the years. Okay, there's been a few times when they haven't played it as well as as attractively as they would. I mean, attractiveness is one thing and effectiveness is another thing. And what they've done brilliantly over the year is combine both. And that's what we want to see.
And if Ole Gunnar Solskjær and Mike Phelan and Michael Carrick, if they, as a trio, secure Champions League football for Manchester United next season by finishing in the top 4, which is a bit of a tall order. I mean, they're 3 points behind Chelsea. They're level with Arsenal, who I think they'll finish in front of. I'm pretty sure they will. And they're 7 points behind Spurs. The way Spurs are going, John, they might catch Spurs. But they have a lot to prove yet because they've got to play big games against big teams before the season is out. If he gets them into the top 4, he surely should be considered.
Oh, it'd definitely be considered, Eamon. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if I were in the position of Manchester United, I would certainly consider it. I definitely wouldn't say at this particular time, that's well, I'm not saying you are that this is going to happen. We're going to wait and see. I'd still be doubtful, Eamon.
Right. Why?
I'd still be doubtful. Well, I think he's taken over at the right time.
Yes.
He's done a very good job. He got a good run in at the moment, and I think you always get
a bounce,
a very, very good bounce when you get somebody like Mourinho's been sacked and somebody comes in. There's no doubt about that. So I don't know if it's real management at the moment, Eamon.
For all the reasons you stated. For example, he's got to find a place for Lukaku, maybe, and as you say, he might have to at some stage make really tough decisions. But
really tough decisions, Tim. Yeah, he can only do what he can do, and he's done it extremely well. I mean, you're asking me a question for the end of the season, and I mean, what I'd have to say, I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, he will make a case for himself. If he keeps going the way he's going, he will make a case for himself. We just have to look at it and say, by people who know him better than we do, and
yes.
Is he ready for the next big test to be the permanent manager, to do the job in a way that he's starting from scratch, really? Was he ever going to handle the big players if he leaves them out of the team and all the various things? Like, everything is great at the moment because he's a breath of fresh air to what's been there. But I don't know. My answer is I don't know him, but he would certainly come into consideration. There's no doubt about that.
And there's no doubt either, I would say, John, that in the last couple of months that Alex Ferguson has made his influence felt a little bit.
Yeah. I'd say quite a bit of him.
Okay, John. It's great to talk to you, and we're very grateful to you for that. And we hope, and I'm sure I speak for all the listeners, that Leeds United, who are top of the Championship, finally get back into the Premier League. Yeah. And maybe then we can talk about them now and again.
Yeah. We'll wait till the end of the season, Eamon.
Okay, John. Thanks very much.